Okay, as part of my Ballad of the Birthday tattoo, I'm going to read a section from Ballads of Suburbia that's about a tattoo. It's Adrian's ballad. He is Kara's love interest. As it says on the back of the book, he's a gorgeous bad boy. And he's the one who started the notebook that the book sort of centers around. It's called The Stories of Suburbia Notebook, but Kara dubs the pieces that she and her friends write as ballads because they're these sort of poignant, life-changing moments. So Adrian's ballad is called The Ballad of a Throwaway, and he wrote it in December 1993. Everyone wants to know the story behind the tattoo. It's pretty hard to miss. Huge black letters down my forearms. Capital THROWN on my right arm, and AWAY down the left, in that fancy old English scrawl, like the rappers and all the big skinhead dudes at hardcore shows get. I say, you know how people got tattooed in concentration camps? It's kind of like that. This will always remind me that I survived the suburbs. It's a shitty and un-PC thing to say, I know, but my shrink didn't label me a sociopath for nothing. And if I'm not saying something like that, I'm making up a story. I got it because my best friend and I got jumped. They shot us both for our sneakers and threw us in a dumpster. I survived. He didn't. I got it because my father flew into a rage about a golf game and came home so pissed that he threw me off a balcony. I got it because my parents threw me out and I moved in with my mother's best friend. She's my sugar mama. It says picked up on my ass cheeks. I got it because I'm a dumpster baby. You know, a chick on the cheerleading squad got knocked up, had me in the bathroom stall during prom, and tossed me out with the trash. I like good stories. That's why I started to collect them. The newspaper clippings, my friends' stories, the stories of suburbia. There's some great ones, huh? I like to think my own story is a combination of the last two, minus the sleeping with my mom's best friend and the thrown in the trash parts. And I guess it's about time I told it. My parents and I have had a hard time getting along since the beginning. My adoptive parents, I mean. Apparently they brought me home when I was 6 months old, and I cried for the next 6 months. Of course, I didn't even find out I was adopted until 6th grade. I learned it in a typical suburban fashion, at the shrinks. I'd been forced to start seeing the shrink the year before because I was LDBD, ADD, you name it. If it ends with D for disorder, I got it. On the plus side, my whacked out brain chemistry is how I met my best friend Quentin. We were always in the principal's office for acting out in class, and the two of us started doing drugs together when we were 8. The legal ones. Ritalin, Adderall, Dexedrine. We traded them like baseball cards and took more than our prescribed dosages. Anyway, my parents told the shrink I was adopted, and he decided they should let me in on the secret, so we had our first and only family session. Suspicious, I went in with my arms crossed and parked myself on a chair instead of with them on the couch. Dad just sat there while Mom clasped and unclasped her manicured hands and smiled her fake-ass smile. "You were born in New Orleans," she began. I arched my eyebrows, but quickly settled back into a poker face. Mom and Dad spent a couple of years doing all they could to combine their own genes, and when that failed, my barren mother window shopped for babies like she'd once shopped for shoes. They'd scoured the country from New York to San Diego, but none of the babies were good enough. Then we found you. My mom squeezed her eyes shut, clasped her hands tighter, and I almost expected her to click her heels together 3 times like she was fucking Dorothy trying to go home. She even resembled Judy Garland, with the perfect coif of dark hair and the sparkle in her eyes masking the doped-up sheen. I'd always thought I'd inherited that hair from her, but apparently not. My hair had drawn her to me, though. You were perfect, with that big head full of You were perfect, with that head full of big brown curls and the most soulful eyes I've ever seen. Yeah, soulful eyes like a goddamn puppy dog. My mom, creative as a stick. As I listened to her, one thought played on a loop. These people aren't my parents. That's why I'm nothing like them. This was both liberating and frustrating because, well, who the hell were my parents? But by the end of the session, I was still too overwhelmed to ask. The shrink prescribed drugs and regular individual visits. More of the same. I did those things when I felt like it. Collecting the articles for my suburban scrapbook became my form of therapy. We had an assignment on the first day of 7th grade where our social studies teacher handed out a stack of newspapers and told us we had half the period to find an article that interested us. Then we'd explain how it affected our lives. I found something in the Chicago Tribune about a 14-year-old girl who tossed her baby in the dumpster after giving birth and went back to her honors English class. I carefully ripped it out and was the first to raise my hand when Mr. Baldwin asked who was ready to present. I summarized for the class, being sure to mention the gory details, like the bloody mess in the bathroom. I said, "So that relates to me because I'm adopted, and that's probably what my birth mother did to me when I was a baby." Jaws dropped. Mr. Baldwin had been warned in advance about me, like all of my teachers had been, so he took me outside and asked in a concerned voice if I'd taken my meds that day. When I claimed that I didn't remember, he sent me off to the school shrink with a hall pass, but I just walked straight out of school with the article folded up in my back pocket. I eventually taped it into a fat red 5-subject notebook that was meant for math homework. I'm sure the shrink would call creating the book a meaningful act, but everyone was so concerned about me ditching class, drinking, doing drugs, the typical crap, that I never got around to telling anyone but my friends about my opus to Suburbia. I didn't ask for the real deal about where I came from until the beginning of junior year of high school, when my parents and I had our biggest blowout. "I dropped out of school today," I informed them at dinner while Dad scooped mashed potatoes onto his plate. The blue bowl smashed on the ice-white ceramic tile. Dad finally lost it. Up until that point, he'd lectured me, grounded me, and despite my every defiance, kept his cool like a champion chess player. But that night, the face that was tanned by weekly golf games turned purple, and everything he wanted to say came out. "No son of mine," he growled. "Technically, I'm not." Dad turned on my dazed mother. "You are the one who wanted this." This meaning the adoption. This meaning me. "I told you that with someone else's kid there'd be no predicting." Yep, that was Dad, the accountant, a genius at logic, numbers, variables, and graphs. The more he spoke, the more I knew he'd always been distant, not because I didn't enjoy golf or math homework or anything he liked, but because I wasn't his own flesh and blood. He made it clear he hadn't been the one who picked me out or even wanted me. We knew nothing about how they treated him in the first 6 months of his life. Mom objected. "Wait, you said you knew they treated him well. He was your friend's daughter's kid." "Not friend, an old business associate. I never claimed to know anything about his personal life. You just had to have a baby." I couldn't believe they were talking about me like I was a dog that turned out not to be pedigreed. I wasn't their troubled kid who they loved and wanted to care for. I was the poorly trained poodle who kept shitting on the carpet. Dad probably wished he could put me to sleep. I hated him so much, I imagined that he and his business associate had stolen me from my real mom. She probably missed me. She probably actually wanted me. It was my turn to break a dish. Lots of them. I threw things off the table, demanding, "Who are my real parents? Where are they? Tell me now. Tell me right fucking now." Mom and Dad watched in horror as dishes, sloppy potatoes, dry meat, and slimy gravy hit the pristine floor. Mom fretted over how long it would take to clean up, and Dad shouted about how much it would cost to replace all this crap. And when the fight was over, the kitchen totally trashed along with any family bond the three of us had ever shared, the guy who raised me told me to get out, that I couldn't come back until I followed his rules and went back to school and therapy. But in my mind, I'd won the argument, because when I threatened to start in on the wedding china, the woman who raised me ran to her bedroom and came back with a page from her address book, my real mother's info. So I'm going to leave it there. There's more to his ballad and a lot more to the book. But hopefully you'll go pre-order it or buy it or check it out at your local library. So that's Ballads of Suburbia. Thanks.